This is State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. You're watching Norfolk Public Access. My guest today intends to be the U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. Of course, that would be Geoff Diehl, so I'm very thrilled to have him here. Oh, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
Oh, now, Geoff, you were involved in a very big issue with the gas tax, weren't you? That was a big thing.
I was. That was something that I worked on back in 2014. And I've been a state representative since 2010. And when I first got in, one of the things that I ran on was trying to make sure we kept taxes low. Also, try to, not have as much corruption on Beacon Hill. There had been a probation department scandal.
Right.
And trying to be more accountable to the people. And so one of the things that happened very early when I was in office was Deval Patrick tried to raise taxes by a record amount, $2 billion. And so the part of that tax package was this failed tech tax, which was going to apply the sales tax to technology services, which we hadn't done before. And 11% of our economy is actually the technology sector. Those folks can just pull the plug out and take a Wi-Fi connection, go to another state. So we ended up repealing that 6 weeks after it was passed, which was good. That was a good thing for the economy. But one of the things that happened was there was this gas tax increase of 3 cents. Now, we didn't touch that, but what they had done is they indexed it to go up automatically every year with inflation. And for people who live in Massachusetts who are very proud of the fact that we're a state where it started of no taxation without representation, this would be the only tax in Massachusetts that would have gone up without any representative vote for the future forever. And what happened would be the Department of Transportation would get a blank check each year of new money and never have to be accountable to the legislature. So it was included in this tax package that the governor had passed. And we ended up creating a ballot question to go out and try to defeat it or repeal it. And so
I got signatures for that.
And you and hundreds of people across the state were an amazing group of people. When we did a press conference up at the State House and said that we were going to do a ballot question to repeal it, they said, well, how are you going to get those signatures? And we said, we're going to do it with all volunteers. We're not going to pay for it. And they laughed at us. They said, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. I think we had to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 67,000 signatures right off the bat. And of course, you can't just get 67,000. You need more than that. So you and hundreds of people across the state ultimately ended up getting over 120,000 signatures so that we were able to get it on the ballot, which was pretty amazing in and of itself.
You had to go out twice, didn't you?
Yeah, so then what happened?
We had to go out twice. We all had to go out twice.
And even worse, the people who had to sign the second round of signatures couldn't be the same people that signed the first round. What happens is the legislature, once it gets up there as once you get all the signatures, the legislature has the option to adopt the law or to not adopt it, which means if they don't adopt it, you have to go out and get that second round, which we ended up having to do. So that's why just to get it on the ballot for the 2014 election cycle was pretty amazing, because we did it without buying the signatures, which unfortunately a lot of groups nowadays do. They just pay for it. But the benefit to that was that we were able to go out and talk to a lot of people about the issue itself. And it wasn't just that the tax was going to go up without a vote, but also that in Massachusetts, our Department of Transportation spends 4 times the national average on road maintenance.
That's right, I remember that too.
If you drive 1 mile of roadway in Massachusetts, we spend $675,000 per year per mile to maintain that road, and the national average is $145,000.
Why is that? Do you know?
Well, some of it is that we do have a longer time that our people work on projects. I'm not sure if they want to keep those jobs open, those projects open longer than they should. But there's also some other factors, like at the time we were in a contract with an asphalt company that was providing faulty asphalt, and it was needing to be replaced more often. So there was a lot of things that were in there. But the other thing too, that a lot of people who drive and live beyond the 495 Beltway, who don't take the T, the downtown Boston MBTA, were very upset about, was the fact that 50% of your gas tax was going to the T, and the T was really
Oh, the whole thing was
burning
a mess.
through a ton of money. Their pension fund was upside down.
Yep.
There was a ton of deferred maintenance. We all know that when the blizzard of 2015 hit, the T completely shut down for about a month. So, they weren't getting their money's worth with the tax dollars that were being spent. And so we were out there telling people about this for a year, about this repeal effort. And the other thing, too, was the opponents who wanted the gas tax to go up every year automatically without a vote. Those were funded by the people who make a lot of money off road construction. So they raised about $3 million to spend against us. We were outspent 31-1 in the race, and yet we still won that ballot question 53-47, and we even outperformed Charlie Baker, the governor who was just elected that year, by 50,000 votes. So it wasn't a Republican issue, it wasn't a Democrat issue, it was a household issue because the gas tax affects middle to low income families in Massachusetts the hardest.
Oh, sure.
Because it's not just what you pump into your car. Right. What you pump into your car, but also all the goods you purchase in Massachusetts because of the transportation cost.
Oh, right.
That would go up automatically every year.
You mean when the trucks come in and fill up?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything that has to be transported in our state, that increases the cost for that gas tax. And the other thing, too, is municipalities aren't exempt from the gas tax. And so every police car, every fire truck, every ambulance, every school bus, all those additional costs each year would get passed on to property tax people who, with property taxes, that extra cost would be there as well. So we proved that it was the wrong thing to do, and ultimately we won that issue. And like I said, we saved taxpayers about $2 billion is what the Boston Globe said we cost.
And I'm sure they made it low. They probably gave it a low ball figure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I know. I remember we were going out with the sheets. I mean, people said, "Huh? What?" I mean, they thought they couldn't understand it. It was so crazy,
That's
you
right.
know, and so out of bounds.
Yeah. So, for me, when I first ran for office, I was 40 years old. I wasn't into politics at all. I didn't know, anything about how Beacon Hill ran. My wife and I own a small business in the town of Hanson. I live in the town of Whitman, which is the home of the Toll House cookie for people who don't know that.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so, and my wife is, we met on a blind date in New York City.
Oh.
And she had just done a Broadway show. So for her, the business we own together is a performing arts school. She teaches dance, acting, and voice. And
She was on Broadway at the time?
Yeah, when we first met.
Oh,
yeah,
my
that's pretty exciting.
What yeah.
And I was working in advertising in New York. But we ended up moving to her hometown of Whitman, and we have two daughters that are 15 and 11. And again, we have that small business. And I was working for a sign company out of New Bedford, where I was working with a lot of, small business owners that wanted to open a store or open a retail location or expand their business. And so really a great chance to talk to the business world about, what's important to them. So and another quick thing, I'm an Eagle Scout. I was earned that when I was 16.
Now that's quite a distinction, isn't it?
Well, only 5% of Scouts make it to Eagle, which is nice. But I only say that because I thought, in Scouting you learn do a good turn daily, or leave the campground better than you found it, and you always want to give back for things that have people who've helped in your life. And so for me, I thought my chance to give back is I'd have a boy someday, and that I'd join a scout troop and be a scout leader. Well, two daughters that love ballet and hate camping and all that stuff, later, I ended up joining my local finance committee in the town of Whitman as a chance to kind of give back to the town that had been so great to me. The state's been so great to me. And it was on the finance committee where I found that we had a state representative that I didn't think was representing our town the best they could up on Beacon Hill. And so I decided to run against him. And again, I was new to politics, so I read 2 books on how to run for office and ended up winning that race, despite the fact that the seat had been held by a Democrat for 14 years. And he was an incumbent, he was the vice chair of education, but I really made the case about why I thought I could do a better job. And since I've been in office, I've been just trying to live up to the promises I made to the people of Abington, Whitman, and East Bridgewater, which is the representative district that I work at.
And what's the name of that district?
It's the 7th Plymouth District.
I always get them mixed up. I never...
It is hard to keep track.
This, that, the other numbers and the different names. So now, what's going on with the campaign right now? Of course, you don't have the primary until...
It's not like for another year.
Another year. But so you've gotten started now. Are you now? What are you doing now as far as your campaign? What are you doing?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously running for United States Senator, it's a statewide campaign, and it involves a lot of people because we need volunteers across the state to help out with the campaign. So I'm going all around. We had our kickoff about 2 weeks ago in my hometown of
It was
Whitman.
very well attended, I heard.
It was great. We had about 500 people there, and Kurt Schilling had announced that he endorsed us that day, so that was really exciting, a former Red Sox pitcher. And so, but we'd been working for a while with an exploratory committee trying to make sure that we were, gearing up. And I wanted to talk to the people of Massachusetts before I made the decision to run for Senate. So we were already out on a listening tour. And what I was hearing from a lot of folks as I was talking to them was that they felt that my opponent for the general election, Elizabeth Warren, really is more of like a part-time senator. They feel like, she's also a part-time author. She's written 2 books while she's in office. She's made $1.6 million doing that. They feel like she's a part-time, candidate for president.
Okay, so have the books been on sale? I've never seen them.
Yeah, I think
they've actually been sold.
I think she's done a book tour. She's gone around to let's see.
God.
She's been to Tennessee. She's been to Michigan. She's been to New York
All to
City
line her
several times.
pockets.
California. Yep. This is the same woman who, was complaining about the fact that college education is so expensive for kids, but charged $350,000 to teach 1 course at Harvard. Okay.
And she didn't even go to Ivy League schools. It was that whole flap about being Cherokee.
Yeah.
And then she wouldn't even talk to the Cherokee Nation when it was where was that? Was it some kind of a conference? It was some kind of a...
Well, 2 different times she checked the box to say that she, deserved the minority hiring as a Native American, but, the fact is she took somebody else's spot that probably was deserving of that, and yes, didn't talk to representatives from that community. So, that's too bad.
That tells you right there that she wouldn't even talk to them. It was at some kind of a big, I don't know, it was a Democratic conference or it was some kind of a convention or something. And I remember thinking, boy, talk about showing your hand. She wouldn't even speak to those people because she knew that they knew, because they keep all those genealogies.
Right. Well, I think what's upsetting to a lot of people is that she seems to say one thing and yet do another. For example, she says that, businesses out there aren't paying women an equal amount in the workplace, but then we found out just this last April that she only pays the women of her Senate staff 71 cents on the dollar for what the male counterparts are making in her own office. It's that kind of...
It's almost like an insanity.
Right.
That you think people are going to be just not going to look into these things and find out whether it's true or not.
Yeah. And look, to me, the job of a United States Senator is to represent the needs of the people of Massachusetts first and foremost. It seems like, for her, the priority is more about trying to stop the president from getting anything done down in Washington. Even though we voted for change in 2016, she's been the central obstructionist down in D.C., voting against every single one of his nominees for cabinet secretaries, which really just slows his ability to try to get America back on track like he wanted to. And the other thing, too, is, she seems to be very divisive about what she says and does. She went to an NAACP dinner a few months ago, and she said that it's law enforcement that continues to terrorize the African American community. And all this really does is continues to divide us as a nation and not bring us together. When the Republicans were trying to deal with fixing health care, which both sides agree needs fixing, she said that it was Republicans that want blood money from the American people. And this was right at the same time that Congressman Scalise was shot in the hip with those the baseball practice thing. And, it's that kind of divisive rhetoric from a U.S. senator that is causing people to be very angry and fight against each other rather than try to work together. And we're at a time in our country where we need to really start, focusing on what's important for Americans. We need to get our economy back in shape. We've been losing trade. We've had trade inequity with China for years. We have a southern border which has completely been overrun with illegal immigration, which is costing, here in Massachusetts, $1.8 billion every year of our $40 billion budget is going towards servicing people who are not here legally.
Exactly.
And I'm all for people immigrating to the country, but we just want to make sure people do it legally.
It's supposed to be a country of laws.
I think so, and it seems that right now the Democratic Party and Elizabeth Warren is for open borders. They're for sanctuary cities.
Oh,
and
now what's the story on that? Do you know from the legislatures? Are they going to make Massachusetts a sanctuary city? Where is that?
Well, there is a bill that's currently in committee that would basically, and what sanctuary city is, or sanctuary state status is saying that local law enforcement can't work with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, to identify and detain those who are here illegally with criminal backgrounds. That's who ICE is targeting, is those who are here criminally, okay? Not just here illegally, but also have committed criminal acts. But
common sense.
you have Mayor Marty Walsh of Boston and other mayors, Joe Curatone of Somerville, that have declared their city sanctuary, which means they've instructed their police departments not to help identify those who are here illegally.
Chelsea's another one.
And what happens is that those become havens for people who are here with criminal backgrounds because they know they won't be identified and deported.
It's the craziest thing in the world. To quote Bill Clinton, remember he said,
"That's right."
The craziest.
So
what do you think is going to happen with that? Are people going to vote on that?
Well, I hopefully does not come out of committee for a vote because you never know what's going to happen on Beacon Hill. But I think what's important too down in Washington D.C. is that not only the president but Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, have said that they are going to do whatever they can to stop this sanctuary city status. There's over 300 across the country by using economic pressure to force cities to comply with federal law. It only makes sense. I mean, it's not just a financial drain to cities to have that sanctuary status, but also public safety.
That woman in San Francisco, he had been in and out 5 times. What was her name?
Kate Steinle.
Yes, what a tragic.
And they actually, Elizabeth Warren voted against Kate's law, which was specifically to stop sanctuary status across the country. The person that killed her, she was shot and died in the arms of her father on a pier in San Francisco. Yeah. The person who shot her had been deported 5 times, had 7 violent criminal arrests made, should never have been in our country. But he went to San Francisco. In his testimony, he said specifically because it was a sanctuary city and he felt like he wouldn't be discovered there. So this is the kind of decision-making that makes no sense to me. And again, I don't know how, you have a U.S. Senator saying don't comply with federal law, which are laws that have been voted on by both Republicans and Democrats over the years to try to keep our country safe.
Now, what happened with Kate's law?
It hasn't passed. And so, it
was defeated.
Yeah, it was defeated. So, that's why Donald Trump and Attorney General Sessions have to try to figure out, alternative routes by which he can use his executive power to keep cities and states from having that sanctuary status.
And so as far as you know, has she expressed any interest in the opiate issue?
Well, actually it's very interesting you say that because she was the sole vote against a bill last year that passed called the 21st Century Cures Act. Okay, and what that was one of the last bills that passed under.
You can't make it up,
no,
can you?
It was one of the last bills that passed under President Obama. It had Vice President Joe Biden's cancer moonshot funding in there. NIH, which is National Institute of Health funding.
Right.
We in Massachusetts, our research hospitals benefit a ton by NIH funding because we have world-class research hospitals that are working on terminal illnesses. Okay.
Right.
The 21st Century Cures Act was voted, it was passed, and every single Democrat except Elizabeth Warren. So we have a congressional delegation of 9 congressmen and women and 2 senators, one of which is Elizabeth Warren. They're all Democrats. Elizabeth Warren was the sole vote against the 21st Century Cures Act in Massachusetts, and just 3 months ago,
it's unbelievable.
$12 million was released by that bill to Massachusetts to fight the opioid crisis. So for her to have taken a vote like that, not just impacting Massachusetts jobs, not just not working towards a cure for terminal illnesses, but also the fact that it is funding the fight against the opioid abuse in this state.
No, I didn't know
really
that.
Hard to believe. Yeah.
Now, were there other Democrats that did vote for it?
Yes. No.
Every
other Democrat from Massachusetts in Congress voted for it. Yeah. But look, this is it seems to be sort of the way she operates is trying to grandstand to make sure that she raises her profile because it seems like she wants to run for president in 2020, and it seems like what she wants is the people of Massachusetts to reelect her to basically do nothing for 2 more years so she can become president. And it's very clear that she's trying to take the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democrat Party now,
right.
Go very far to the progressive left, and at the same time not work with the administration down in Washington, D.C. to get things done for Massachusetts. And this is where I find we have the biggest problem. We have immediate needs from our federal government right now. When Obama left office, he declared monument status on 5,000 square miles of fishing lands outside of the south coast of Massachusetts, really impacting our fishing industry.
You mean they couldn't fish there?
Right. Completely off limits overnight. No discussions with the fishermen about this, just completely shut it off. And she should, or somebody should, and what I want to do is get to D.C. and work to overturn that, because it's critical for us to be competitive along the eastern seaboard to keep our fishing boats out there. And there's one other thing that happened. There's a fisherman by the name of Carlos Rafael. He owns quite a few boats. Well, it turns out his nickname was the Codfather, if you can believe it. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, he was exceeding catch limits by claiming that that haddock that he was catching, or the cod that he was catching, was haddock, so that he could catch more. And he was also sending money back to his home country without paying taxes on it. So he's about to lose. There's a court decision where he's about to lose 42 of his federal fishing licenses. And right now, we have people from the state of Maine and other states that want to have the Massachusetts New Bedford fishing licenses reapportioned outside of Massachusetts to other areas. There's 241 fishermen who depend on those fishing licenses every day to go out and catch their fish. They need to keep those fishing licenses here. There's a lot of industry that in New Bedford Port that depends on that as well. Ice companies that provide the ice for the fish, the processing plants,
huge.
Boat repairmen. If we lose those 42 federal fishing licenses, we're going to lose millions of dollars in our state's economy.
Now, that hasn't happened yet.
No, but it's happening any time. And
Now, the Herald hasn't covered that, because I read almost every day. Read the Herald, and I'm very disappointed with the Herald this past year. I mean, I've never heard about that at all.
Yeah, well, it's important, and I'll tell you, the decision's coming down very soon on what's going to happen with this, with Carlos Rafael as to whether he's going to go to jail. But equally important, if not more, to a lot of these families that work down there, is that we want to make sure that we are able to keep that industry thriving, because certainly we're having a tough time already. If you look at the lobster industry, we're losing ground to states like Maine or even Canada, who have been able to come in and sort of undercut our lobstermen. So there's a lot of work to do right now to help people with federal law and federal agencies.
And it's not a far reach to assume that this can just increase. These people have to go on welfare, the WIC, the ABT, and then the opiates, because people are discouraged and depressed and hopeless, and it's just like a ripple effect.
Right. No, Anne Marie, it's exactly right. You want to keep people working. The best welfare program is a job, because people, are earning money. They are able to, biggest thing I want to make sure is that people are able to retire with dignity, that veterans can come back from serving overseas and have jobs, once they've served our country. Make sure that they are going to VA hospitals, by the way, that are also run correctly. Make sure that we're able to afford college educations for our kids. Make sure that we're able to afford our mortgage. We need to make sure that Massachusetts is taken care of by Washington, D.C. And right now, with Senator Warren and the stance she's taken against the president, there is no way that she can have a seat at the table when it comes to a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president.
Now, I just want to clarify. Tell me what the timeline is as far as the primary, and then when her term is up. Could you just clarify that?
Sure. So in November of 2018 is when she will be up for re-election.
Okay.
Just like the same time that Governor Baker is up at the same time.
Okay.
So, and prior to that, about a year from now, there'll be a primary, a Republican and potentially Democrat primary, although I don't see anybody right now running against Elizabeth Warren.
Against Elizabeth, yes.
Yes. And so there'll be a primary on the Republican side. The winner of that would then, go against Elizabeth Warren in November of 2018.
And that's when her term is up.
That's it. Yep, a 6-year term. And she has only served one term. She defeated Scott Brown in 2012. Right. Yep.
So if she thinks that she may do well, and of course she's so arrogant and crazy. I mean, her affect is crazy. So if she thinks that she might stand a chance to go for the president, would she maybe let the seat go? Or,
no, I doubt it. I think she wants to, be running from a situation where she'd be the current senator. But again, to me, what's important about this race is making sure that whoever wins is there for Massachusetts. And I want to spend,
absolutely.
If I'm fortunate enough to win in 2018, I want to spend the next 6 years in office delivering for the people of Massachusetts, just as I've been able to deliver up on Beacon Hill with tax, I have savings of over $2 billion. I pushed back against the Olympics.
That's that was the other thing. That was the other crazy thing. I remember that too.
Yeah, Boston 2024 said they wanted the Olympics to come.
Can you imagine what a mess that would have been?
Well, and the other thing was the International Olympic Committee, says that the host state or city has to pay for the overruns. Well, the average overruns for the Olympics is $10 billion. So I filed language in the House to keep taxpayers from having to pay for those overruns. Now, it got shot down because I think there's a lot of Beacon Hill politicians who probably would have enjoyed jobs in the 2024 Olympics, including Deval Patrick, who was at the time being paid $7,000.
Well, yeah, was he supposed to be running it or some crazy thing? What was
he was a spokesman. After he was done with governor, he was paid $7,500 a day.
Oh, I remember that.
To be a spokesman to try to sell the Olympics from happening.
What a con.
Yeah. And so it was a
Really?
boondoggle that, again, I wasn't going to let happen. And luckily, I partnered with Evan Falchuk, who had run for governor as an independent, and we filed ballot language to prevent taxpayers from having to fund those overruns. We didn't even have to go further with it because luckily about 2 weeks later, Boston 2024 decided to pull the plug on the bid. And thankfully, you know, we've just seen Rio de Janeiro, I believe, has had a major fiscal meltdown because of the Olympics that they hosted. London went from $5 billion to $15 billion when they hosted it. Montreal, which had the '76 Olympics, just finished paying off their bonds a few years ago. So it would have been a financial disaster for Massachusetts at a time when we certainly don't need any more strain on our household budgets.
Well, you must be very proud of all these things that you've done. I mean, you know, you can cite all of these things that are, you know, were really important and really helped the Commonwealth. I mean, just the tax thing alone.
Well, I consider myself lucky to be able to run for United States Senate, knowing that there are hundreds of people that I've worked with directly on these ballot questions and on different issues, and thousands of people across the state that I've been able to meet and talking, who believe the same thing that we all believe.
Exactly.
And look, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's going to be a difficult race against Elizabeth Warren. Well, Scott Brown won in 2010 when he was the 41st vote against Obamacare, which he was right. The Affordable Care Act has been anything but affordable. Nobody has saved that $2,500 per household.
Another big con, big lie.
No, I mean the monthly premiums and the deductibles have skyrocketed, so households are, you know, health care is not affordable. Both sides know that. And you know, also the ballot question of 2014, we were able to win that. And, you know, Charlie Baker won when he said that he would be a better manager of state services, so Republicans can win in Massachusetts. Now it's just the next step. Do people want someone down in Washington as a U.S. Senator who is going to continue to fight the president and fight America moving forward, or someone who can go down there and have a seat at the table with the president?
Exactly. You know, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for coming on. And thanks for watching State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. You've been watching Norfolk Public Access. I want to thank Katie in the booth and Christina on camera. So look for us the next time. Bye-bye. Thank you.